So this video is way overdue, and due to cybercrime laws in the UAE, if I ever land in the Dubai National Airport, I will probably immediately be arrested. So we might as well do another video, right? 8 princesses from the UAE spent 8 months at a luxury hotel in Brussels, Belgium, where they brought 20 servants along, probably feeling that the hotel staff wouldn't be able to fully accommodate them, and these servants had to sleep on the floor, be available 24 hours a day, and when they were hungry, they just had to eat the princesses' leftovers. This is not just an accusation. A few of the servants actually escaped, and then they ended up suing the royals in Europe and actually won the case. And that's just the main ruling family of the UAE. Multiple royal families, including the ruling family of Dubai, have been accused of trafficking children into the country just to use them as camel jockeys. And they don't even care to lie about it, because when it was claimed that the country had banned the practice, one of the princes said that the owners of the camel racing stables would be responsible for returning children under 15 to their home countries.
I'm sorry.
Returning? How did they get there in the first place? Under 15? I think you guys can put 2 and 2 together, and both of these events took place from 2002 to 2008, with the servants' case actually being decided in 2017. But from the 2022 trafficking report from the US State Department, the UAE didn't even meet the minimum standards for eliminating trafficking. I mean, I know it's a problem in many countries, but not even meeting the minimum requirements is crazy. The Emiratis, or the people born and raised in the UAE, only make up about 12% of the population. It's really not rocket science to figure that the majority of the workforce is foreign born. And this also includes women from Europe, Eastern Europe specifically. So when you see Maria from Moscow with her rich husband, they're probably on vacation. But when you see Natasha from Krasnokamensk working in a massage parlor, she probably didn't come into the UAE on a student visa. And yes, this is like my 3rd video involving Dubai, but like when I tell my mom that the Los Zetas operate in Cancun when she tries to vacation there, I just want people to be educated about what's going on. Because most people, even wealthy people, will not ask, how does a country with no minimum wage get a 7-star hotel? When you have a 1-bedroom apartment, 473 square feet, bro, going for over $16,000 a month with no minimum wage, that's a clear sign that the working class is not meant to be able to afford housing. The only reason those servants working for the princesses at the hotel were able to contact law enforcement is because they were in Europe at the time at the Conrad Hotel in Belgium. So it's not like the royals could exactly hunt them down and make them disappear in the desert over there. Some of the men in the royal families are accused of being pretty ruthless and indifferent. And by the way, I keep saying families plural because the UAE is split between 6 different royal families. That being said, it's not common for a prince to kill his father's assistant or even be accused of it. I mean, we haven't heard of Prince William having someone beheaded at Buckingham Palace. Prince Hisahito of Japan, he seems like a nice kid. And King Maswati has at least 8 sons. I haven't heard anything about them, but in a classified document that made it to WikiLeaks, the, at the time, acting consul general in Dubai, in a report on how the ruler had appointed his 2nd son as crown prince. The reason he gave for the firstborn son being passed over is because he supposedly killed one of his father's assistants. And it's also speculated that this murder has something to do with the prince's alleged drug use, according to Consul General Martin Quinn. The prince was a frequent guest at underground parties only available to the very wealthy. Not just any millionaire could get access to something like this. And another insider source on the Dubai royal family gives an insight on all the migrants in the UAE who did actually get paid a decent wage. But in return, some of them had to endure insults and harassment by the royals, at least if you work close to them. Like 2 former royal staff members, an African man and a British man of Southeast Asian descent, Mr. Ali. The African man states that he was referred to by his bosses as a black slave, while Mr. Ali had been forced out of his job after refusing to spy on a visiting dignitary. But obviously his employment was at the will of the employer. In early 2025, Maria Kovalchuk went missing for 10 days until she was found severely injured on the side of a road in Dubai. This was just in March 2025. According to her, after she missed a flight, she met up with 2 men in Dubai she believed to be connected in the modeling business. One of them even offered to accommodate her after she missed her flight. And it's then she states that she was held captive and assaulted before being thrown from a ledge. She says it wasn't any Emiratis or royals that did this to her, but wealthy Russian guys. And this obviously challenges the notion of the UAE being safe. Sure, you might not get robbed, but things do happen, and the main difference is that the little crime that does happen here seems to involve either people so wealthy that they won't be prosecuted, or people that were almost wealthy enough until they got caught. And this shouldn't be a foreign concept concept because wealthy people in a society often get away with some type of crime. If you want a recent example, just watch literally any of my Epstein videos, but in 1969, Ted Kennedy was driving a car with a girl named Mary Jo in his passenger seat. And when the car went off a bridge into a body of water, Kennedy escaped, but the girl didn't. Now, he always claimed that he wasn't drunk, but for some strange reason, he didn't report the accident for 10 hours because, in his own words, when I realized something happened this morning, I immediately contacted the police. 10 hours later, just long enough for someone to sober up, you could argue. But again, he says he wasn't drunk. And this was in 1969. Obviously, by this time, his oldest brother had already been the president of the United States, his other brother had already been the U.S. Attorney General and New York Senator, and Ted himself was a senator at the time of the incident. And he continued to be a senator for another 40 years after this. And that's only because he died in office. But anyway, I already went over in my last video on this topic why influencers will still try to convince you this is the best place to live and the peak of 21st century civilization. Well, there's an influencer license, essentially, issued by the state, where as a requirement, you basically can't criticize the government. But why would just regular people living in the UAE also deny that any of this is happening? Well, it will be extremely frowned upon to do so while you're in the country, and just because you live somewhere doesn't mean you know everything that's going on in the country. But you have to remember that this place is essentially a feudal country, which can definitely mean that something doesn't have to be illegal or legal for it to still take place. And due to this, many international criminals come to the UAE so they can continue to operate their business without many restrictions. Like this guy, who got caught in a hidden recording by a BBC reporter that went undercover to interview him about his open-minded servant girl.
You have to tell me which girls you want. Oh, we've got like 24 girls. They'll do whatever. Like many are open-minded. Do they do Dubai Port to Potty as well? Sorry? Do they do Dubai Port to Potty stuff as well? Or no? I've told you, they're open-minded.
And it's pretty strange what authorities in the UAE do and don't take serious. Because you have a guy like this operating a brothel in broad daylight, while a robbery gang got sentenced to death in Sharjah. Many criminals, like a top lieutenant in the Irish mob, came here because of things like the banking confidentiality, which, despite the fact that scammers have been arrested in the UAE before, banking is reportedly pretty much behind the rest of the developed world, as questionable transactions are more likely to go through without raising the eyebrow. But that's not the only reason, because the UAE also seems to function as some kind of safe haven. In 2022, the leader of a super cartel from Bosnia-Herzegovina was arrested in Dubai. Now, he was arrested because he already had a warrant in the Netherlands for his shipment of nearly 740 kilos of cocaine, which is over 1,600 pounds. And this shipment went from South Africa to Rotterdam. Now, you'd think that since the authorities in the UAE arrested him, they were either planning to have him face justice there or extradite him.
I'm sorry.
But after being held for 2 months in the UAE, they just released him. Here we have a guy that the UAE knows is a major drug trafficker, but for whatever reason, they basically grant him asylum. Where on the other hand, a British woman was at a party in Dubai in October 2024 when the police burst into the apartment and arrested her as well as several other people. Now, the police found 50 grams of cocaine at this party, and even though it wasn't her apartment, because she did a single line of it, she tested positive on the drug test they gave her, and this led to a 25-year sentence for being a drug user. So it seems like you just have to be a certain level of criminal to get away with stuff. And it also helps if the crime you committed was in another country. And the wanted arms dealer that has a luxury villa in Dubai, along with the Bosnian cartel boss, proved that some people at some levels do get away with big crimes. But since a kingpin has been arrested in the UAE and extradited before, it seems to me that maybe a little under the table robbery also plays a role. I mean, the royal family and all the expats might have money, but what about the average police officer? So all in all, if you're an organization that can bring in $1 billion, you can set up shop or launder money. Because you're not exactly taking any revenue from the UAE, the country is so rich they don't even have income tax. But if you're a petty criminal, you can end up with a life sentence. And if you're a royal, well, then you can do whatever you want. And of course, all of this goes back to the basically feudal state that the UAE is, and the fact that it has royal families. Because no matter what type of government it exists in, governments that have monarchies just seem to be more transparent about how much the royals will get away with.
Who's that back there?
Although our presidential system in the United States leaves the same amount of room for nepotism and corruption, and this is what people that live in the UAE need to take into consideration before watching my video. I'm not pointing at your system and saying that mine is better. I'm just pointing out things for my fellow Americans who may not be educated on what goes on. And also my Europeans, Africans, and Asians, because even though all of this is public knowledge, some of it still takes a little digging to prove. And with this video, I have officially destroyed any chance of myself ever being let into the UAE. But I can always go to Las Vegas, I guess.